Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang, Trump's analysis to buy Denmark, to buy Greenland from Denmark, this historical event, and understanding that specific historical event. Trump doing an analysis to buy Greenland from Denmark. We're going to look at that through the lens of the Falkland Island Wars of 1982. And it is my opinion that if Andrew Yang looks at the historical event of Donald Trump trying to buy Greenland from Denmark through the historical lens of the Falkland War of 1982, he will understand that there is something very, very important happening in American history, and Andrew Yang needs to quickly remap his opinion on this entire event. By the way, there are sleeper events. There are things that happen, and the media is just so unaware, of how to recognize history. I truly believe this Greenland-Denmark thing is a major point in American history. This is critical, and I really think this is incredibly important. Let's get into this. All right. Okay. So, I try very hard not to be ignorant. I'm ashamed of ignorance, right? Now, if there's some really deep, esoteric, or obscure knowledge within a field, I don't feel ashamed if I don't know that knowledge, right? But the Falkland Wars of 1982 is a war that happened within my lifetime, and I knew very little about it until about a month and a half ago. Really, almost nothing, right? I knew it had to deal with Great Britain, but I really didn't know where the Falkland Islands were, right? And for some reason, dodos were in my head that there were dodos on this island, which aren't even, they're extinct. I knew nothing about this war, right? But recently, I fully understood the Falkland Island Wars. Here's how I got to that knowledge. All right. So, I, J. Scott Garibay, I have this second love beyond politics, which is Dungeons & Dragons. I study the publication history of Dungeons & Dragons from 1974 up to current. I own every single edition of the game in hardback. I'm a collector, and I think it's an element of Americana, right? And so I study it, and this is becoming easier and easier as, just so you're aware, the publication history of Dungeons & Dragons is actually starting to be studied at a scholarly level, right? It's very, there are many books written on it. And so this is something I study, right? So there's a guy that I go to, and I listen to him when he talks about the publication history of Dungeons & Dragons. Well, this guy's in Britain, right? And he fought in the Falkland Island Wars. And so on his YouTube channel, he did a 1-hour breakdown of his experience in that war. It blew my mind. He explained what happened, right? So he explained that he went to the Falkland Island Wars, and that what happened was in 1982, the European Union, he went to the Falkland Islands to fight this war, right? He explained this war. I couldn't believe it. This war was 10 weeks long. 250 Great British soldiers died. 633 Argentinians died, right? Almost 1,000 people died in this war. This war was hardcore. They went at it. So people from Argentina, right, coming out to this island, the Falkland Islands, fighting British people. There were warships. There were submarines. There were fighter jets, right? There were tanks. I think there were tanks, right? Helicopters, infantry. This was a real war. People died, right? It was not this nonsense skirmish stuff that we talk about today and complain that it's a war and maybe it's a couple people shooting at each other, right? This was cojones out, straight to the wall. This was a real war, right? It was bad, right? So, and this all happened in 1982, right? So this British guy, he explains, he says, okay, let me explain to you what happened, right? He says, European Union wasn't even around, so they couldn't help us, right? He said, Britain went to NATO and said, hey, give us some help, right? We need help getting our land back, the Falkland Islands, right? NATO didn't give them any help. They went to the United Nations. United Nations did some finger wagging. Oh, that's terrible, Falkland Islands. You shouldn't be fighting the British there, right? Didn't give the British any help, right? Nobody gave the British help. The British had to do this all on their own, right? So this British guy, he's explaining this, right? And then, and then he explains that the Falkland Islands they're a British territory, right? They're a remnant of the British Empire, right? Now, Britain returned a lot of the land to that they had from the Empire, but for some reason the Falkland Islands weren't returned. I think one of those reasons was that the Falkland Islands were like, we'd like to stay British, right? But the reality, so the Falkland Islands stayed British, right? So here in 1982, the British are fighting for the Falkland Islands, right? And they fought the Argentinians for the Falkland Islands, right? So all this happened, right? So I get done this video, and I just have all this sympathy for this poor British soldier, and for how hard he fought, and how America, nor NATO, nor UN, nobody gave them any help securing these islands, right? And I was like, that is really terrible, right? Well, because it was just a YouTube video, I immediately went and I began to find, written sources that would tell me more about the war, right? Because I wanted to know more. Well, I'll tell you right now, all of my goodwill and all of my sympathy for this British soldier evaporated immediately the second I looked at a map. That's all it took to understand the Falkland Island Wars, right? I looked at the map, right? Here you go. Falkland Islands are 1,500 kilometers off the shore of Argentina. You know how far they are from Britain? They're 8,000 kilometers, right? So this is Britain. Like, you can be on the shores of the shores of Argentina and throw a stone and hit the Falkland Islands. Maybe it's a little farther than that. But they're just in ship, they're just going out in local boats, and there's Falkland Islands. It's right there, right? It's right next to Argentina, right? The moment I saw a map, I was like, wait. Britain traveled 8,000 miles to secure an island that's sitting right off the coast of Argentina, right? And that's when it became very evident to me that when it comes to war, one of the things that people should start considering is proximity, right? That's not the only thing that should be considered. But the idea that proximity doesn't matter is a pretty ridiculous, right? The reality is we don't have empires anymore. That's not a thing, right? There are no emperors anymore. So if you frankly have an empire and you sent a whole bunch of ships out a few hundred years ago and you got some land, based on that, this is kind of ridiculous. I'm like, that's not cool, man. So the second I saw a map, my opinion of the Falkland Island War completely changed. And I had a lot more sympathy for the Argentinians than I did for the British, right? They're literally holding on to an empire bauble. I'm like, what? That's kind of crazy. Well, guess what? I looked at another map. I looked at the same map again. And guess what? Eta is a town on the North American continent, right? If you measure the different distance between Eta and Thru, a town that is in Greenland, the distance between those 2 points is only 400 kilometers, right? Guess what the distance between Nanortalik, Greenland, and Copenhagen, Denmark is? It's 3,300 kilometers, right? It's very, very, it's 7 or 8 times farther, right? Get this. Greenland is physiographically connected to the North American continent. Physiographically connected, right? That means that sucker broke off of our continent when the plates cracked up, right? That's literally part of our continent, right? And the king and queen of Denmark, I don't think they have a king right now. They have whatever monarchs they have in Denmark are 3,300 kilometers away, right? And are like, oh, that's our land way over there, right? I'm like, what? Hey, wait, this is sitting Like, you can throw a rock, from the North American continent to Greenland. It's kind of ridiculous that, that Greenland doesn't belong to America. All right, so what does this mean, right? So one, a couple things. Here's what Andrew Yang needs to think over, right? Does proximity matter? I say yes. The J. Scott Garibay answer is yes. Empires are dead. There are no more empires, right? No more emperors. There's not an emperor on this planet. Unfortunately, there's still a few kings and queens, right? But the reality is there are no more emperors. If you had an empire and you're trying to keep your stuff from your empire, maybe it's not ridiculous if people want to really question that, right? So here's my issue, right? Just because some monarchs from Denmark sent some ships over and took Greenland a few hundred years ago, whenever they did it, right? Here's the issue. One, I think Andrew Yang should really, really, really consider how important is proximity in land ownership, right? I think it should be pretty high. We should definitely be considered, right? This is a real thing, right? And then in addition to that, it should be made super clear. One, absolutely not, at no point should America go to war with Denmark to get Greenland back. That would not be appropriate, right? However, every single ridiculous media head out there who is saying that it was absurd for Donald Trump to offer to buy Greenland, to do an analysis to buy Greenland from Denmark, right? Every single analyst who reported that that's an absurdity, they are not looking at maps and they are not using pure logic, right? It is not ridiculous in any way for anyone to think that the United States of America should own Greenland. I think we should absolutely own Greenland, right? And the idea of our president making a valid monetary offer to Denmark, and Denmark, their monarchs getting uppity with us, right, over just a monetary offer? How dare they, right? They forgetting who they're talking about, right? This is America. We got history with uppity monarchs. We've dealt with that problem before, right? Like, it is not ridiculous for Donald Trump to be saying that America should own Greenland, right? Greenland is physiographically connected to our continent. It cracked off from our continent, not Denmark's continent, right? And honestly, if you think about it, I honestly have no idea why Denmark owns Greenland, right? There doesn't seem to be any logical reason why in the modern world Denmark should own Greenland. I think Trump is absolutely right? And Yang needs to really, really back it up, look again, right? Because this is important, right? This is America. In America, we truly are an expansionist nation. It's in our red, white, and blue blood, right? We can no longer violently expand. It is not allowed. It is not appropriate in the modern world. But if America puts together a monetary offer to buy land from another nation who really has an extremely tenuous connection to that land, that should not be laughed at. Donald Trump is the U.S. President of the United States of America. And frankly, I do not like the idea of some uppity monarch laughing when we put together a peaceful, quite reasonable attempt to get that land through a completely peaceful approach. Right? I really think Yang needs to reconsider this, walk it back, and I honestly think Andrew Yang should seriously consider picking this up and saying, I, Andrew Yang, will make a monetary offer to buy Greenland, the country that is physiographically connected to our continent, as soon as I'm president, right? This would be great. It would bond him with Trump in a way that is fun, right? In a way where nobody can get hurt, right? Who's the opponent here, right? Some uppity monarchs in Denmark? Come on. They could take it, right? So and the reality is, I think this is a really good place for him to gain Trump voters. And frankly, we need the land, right? And frankly, now that I've looked at a map, frankly, I'm appalled that Denmark owns a whole nice country, right, that is physiographically connected to our continent and has absolutely nothing to do with Denmark. Nothing, right? Like, there's no reason in the world Greenland should belong to Denmark. And at the same time, I'll tell you right now, I don't think that the Falkland Islands should belong to Britain. Like, it's just like, empires don't exist anymore. Okay, let's all the only emperor around is in Star Wars. He's not on this planet, right? Like, so the idea that people should be hanging on to land that they got, through empires is absurd, right? Like, and so I really think America should own Greenland. And I think Andrew Yang should absolutely jump on this. He's got to back it up. He's really got to rethink this. And also, I'm really encouraging the rest of you, please be careful with the media. They are so off, right? Huge events happen. Important things happen. All they can think, all they can see is Trump bad. It's as far as their vision goes. They're so myopic. It's ridiculous, right? And all you need to really understand this Greenland thing is just look at a map, right? And frankly, if you didn't, I have much sympathy for you, because I had not looked at a map to figure out the Falkland Island War, right? So, if you really don't know where Greenland is, much sympathy to you. I definitely understand that. But please, really consider taking a look at where Greenland is. And once you see that, I think you might think that that Trump's plan is a little less than absurd and might be very, very reasonable and a huge opportunity for Andrew Yang, right? This is like a really unusual opportunity where I think he could just gain a ton of votes, right? And really gain a huge advantage for America. It's really, really good idea. All that's my opinion. I'd love to know your opinion. How much do you think we should pay for Greenland? I'm really curious. And please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.